Today I'm going to be talking about how we can use astrology and apply astrological principles to a working philosophy of something. And because human beings are the ones who are creating philosophies and belief systems, and human beings are subject to astrological principles. And so if we study something that human beings create, we can see astrology within it. And a philosophy is how we make sense of the world. So if there's an unhealthy planet or a healthy planet within a philosophy, we can identify how that's working within a certain belief system. So I made that video about woke politics and how that is a result of a toxic Jupiter. And really any poorly constructed philosophy is going to have an unhealthy Jupiter or Jupiterian flaws within it. But today's topic is anarchism, and how anarchism as a belief system is the result of an unhealthy sun. And really it's the denial of the solar consciousness, which is a fundamental aspect of human nature. We all have a sun. And so how anarchism will essentially never work, because it's denying a fundamental part of human beings. So let's get into it. So anarchism is a political philosophy that seeks to abolish authority and authority figures and any rulers, as well as to not construct any kind of hierarchical institution. So much has been written about and theorized about anarchy that I'm not just going to repeat all the possible definitions and all the offshoots, but that's the basic premise, that the abolition of rulership and of any kind of systems of authority whatsoever. So there are so many problems that you could dissect about anarchy and the problems that anarchists have in implementing this idea. And the first problem is that essentially society needs to collapse to even begin that experiment. And some anarchists, they're trying to build this kind of society, if you want to say build, but they're trying to establish a society that's decentralized and horizontal, as the way they would describe it, trying to build from scratch this kind of institution or this kind of way of living within our current hierarchical system. So the contradiction there is that these people are going to have to rely on all of the hierarchical supply chains that deliver food directly to them, to their nearest supermarket, and also at the same time relying on local police to keep them safe from any kind of vigilantes. So if you want to create a society of anarchy, and you're going to have to abolish these simple public safety systems, as well as how do you get food. You have to really go back to total basics to be living in a pure anarchistic system. So the heart of why anarchism will never work is actually very, very simple. And like I said, you can talk about all of the theoretical problems, but the problem is extremely simple. It's that the impulse towards leadership is built into human nature. So some people are born as natural leaders, and other people, they're just simply not natural leaders. And if you look around the world, you'll see that many individuals are not born with any kind of desire to carry the heavy responsibilities of being a leader. They would just rather play their role in society and entrust certain responsibilities to the responsibilities of rulership and authority to somebody else. And that's not a bad thing. A lot of people, they don't want to have to deal with heavy is the head that wears the crown. There's so many kinds of decisions that need to be made, and not everyone is going to be that alpha that thrives in that kind of environment. That's the stressful world of having to be essentially taking care of other people and looking out for the best interests of other people. And so the first responsibility of a ruler is public safety, the safety of the people that you're essentially in charge of looking after. So it's their primary duty to make sure that people are protected physically, whoever is in their jurisdiction. And so it's far easier, essentially, for any kind of individual to not have to always be defending yourself from threats threats against your physical safety. We have a hierarchical system of police in order to do that. We entrust our safety to them to look after us. So the anarchists will argue that they're proponents of say, radical self-governance. And as a response to rulers or institutions, their tendency towards becoming abusive and abusing power and becoming tyrannical. So they say we should be governing ourselves in a radical way. We have total self-control. I rule myself, and no one has authority over me in any shape or form, and no one should have authority over me. So, as I was just saying, most people aren't capable of that. It's easier to entrust certain aspects of your authority to other people, say hiring a fund manager whose job it is to look after your investments instead of you have to do everything yourself. You're going to pay them to do that work for you, but you're giving them a certain authority to manage it. It's easier to do that if you trust the person and you want them to be in charge of it. Having a fire department, paying taxes so you have a fire department that puts out fires instead of you having to put out every fire. So it's simply easier to have authorities in certain areas of our lives. But can you teach everyone to get rid of that part of themselves, that it's easier to give away certain aspects of your authority? Can you teach people to be radically self-governed? It's very possible you could teach people to do that. And it would have to be in the context of an extremely localized agrarian society where families are producing and equally distributing their resources. It would have to be kind of back to zero kind of situation. But if that society starts growing, or that isolated groups of families or individuals, it starts to grow and prosper, it'll always come back to the same situation and the same problem. Who's going to be making decisions when there are conflicts between the individuals or between the families? Who's in charge of protecting the differing clans? Who's going to have a certain kind of say? Is it going to be pure democratic, or what if there's disagreement and 51 and 40, there's a 51% say something, 49% say the other? Essentially I'm trying to say is that there has to be decisions that have to be you have to come to solutions when conflicts happen. So any kind of radically decentralized horizontal structure, it's eventually going to be dominated by a more centralized one, because a centralized structure has a unified goal. So any decentralized horizontal structure is going to essentially, if we were talking about the agrarian situation, a group of people who are united in a goal, they're going to come and dominate and pillage that society because they're unified. A disunified, individuals all separated, completely governing themselves, it's not as strong as a group of people who are unified in something. So it would be easily dominated by a people that agree on something and have a leader that sends them off to do, say, the dirty work of pillaging and stealing the resources of decentralized people. So what this comes down to is that there's a power vacuum, and power vacuums essentially will always eventually be filled. And there are countless examples throughout history when there is a temporary situation, when there are no rulers, the abolition of rulers, chaotic, and human beings attempting to organize that chaos. And what happens in that power vacuum situation, the most ruthless and violent individuals gain power. And that's moral or immoral. It's not about morality, it's about pure power. So the most clear example of this is the Bolshevik Revolution, and then Leninism and Stalinism in the Soviet Union. Essentially, after the overthrow of Tsar Nicholas, there was a power vacuum, and the most ruthless leaders, Vladimir Lenin specifically, took the reins of power. So you can extend this thought experiment of playing with possibilities about how an anarchist situation would work. But the underlying fact is always the same. The underlying problem is that human beings that are connected under an umbrella of a higher authority will always gain more power than a disconnected group of radically self-governed individuals. So what is it about human nature that has this impulse to gain power? And it's, as I mentioned, it's the solar consciousness within us. And that is our ability to embody the characteristics of the sun. So the sun is the most powerful force in our physical reality. And so the sun within us is the power to embody our true self. It's pure truth. And that is our soul, the undying, the immortal part of us. That most true thing about us. A powerful sun, a great sun, is a person who's able to live the mission of their soul in this current lifetime, to be a pure expression of the deepest truth within you. So the stronger that the solar force is within a person, the stronger the solar force is going to be expressed outwardly. The sun is a planet that is we externalize our soul. We externalize the pureness within us when the sun is powerful. So when the solar force is strong, this manifests as a powerful person. And other people are going to be magnetically attracted and drawn towards wanting to emulate and follow that person, and to want to embody what they have, which is a strong ability to express their true self. And when that solar force is strong, that person, they're seen as a noble person, or they have a certain nobility and stability about them. And therefore people look to them they want to rely on them, because stability is one of the most attractive traits of a leader. So someone who is embodying that stability, that nobility, that sense of responsibility and goodwill towards other people, people are naturally drawn to them. Those are the basic traits of a good leader. And leaders, as I was saying, they can have those traits of a strong individual that people are attracted to and want to be a part of. And they can be completely immoral people. They can have terrible ideas. They can have destructive ideas. And they can be proponents of things that eventually will cause the collapse of their society. But there's a part about them that draws other people to them. They're natural leaders. So it's not to say that natural leaders are always good or always bad. They're going to have their own philosophies. But the point is that there are such things as natural leaders as a fundamental aspect of human nature. There just is that. So as astrologers, we can see the strength of the solar force within a person by simply studying the health of their sun in their natal chart. So natural leaders, they are born. And also people can learn to become leaders throughout their lives. They can learn to embody the positive traits of the sun, and to be taught how to be a good leader, whether that's in whatever context, in a corporation, at your job, the leader of your family. People can learn these traits as well. But not everyone is born with a strong sun, and they don't have that natural ability to follow their soul's path. And also, it's not their soul's path to become a leader. They can contribute to society in their own ways. Not everyone has to be the number one, has to become a leader. So anarchism is always going to fail, and it's essentially a useless exercise of theory, and it's a totally, it's incompatible with the reality of human beings and the world we live in, because leaders are always going to appear in the world, and they're going to take on the responsibilities of power no matter how hard you try to beat out that impulse within people, or try to convince people that we don't need leaders, abolish leaders. That's what anarchism is saying. No leaders. You lead yourself, and that's it. It's never going to work, because naturally there's always going to emerge other people that others are attracted to and want to follow. And I would say that I would hypothesize that people who are proposing this idea that we abolish hierarchies, we abolish systems of like a chain of command almost, with the leader at the top, and people that are proponents of this anarchistic ideology, they're going to have a weak and unhealthy sun in their natal chart, or they've developed a weak and unhealthy sun in their experiences, because they're making this logical mistake that the mistake they make is that they see abuse of power, and they see power structures that are objectively making the world worse, or they see toxic leaders. And then that means that all leaders and all power structures must be toxic, and that concept itself needs to be abolished. That's just because you see bad things happening in the world doesn't mean that thing can't be good. There are such things as good leaders. People become good leaders, and they have the capacity to become leaders. So people are always just going to emerge onto the scene that other people want to follow, the natural born leaders. So it is healthy to question authorities, and it's not healthy to blindly follow a leader or an elected official. But there's no utility, there's no practical use in denying the fact that leadership is a natural human phenomenon, and it's an integral part of human nature given to us and a part of us because of the solar consciousness. The sun is the leader of our reality. Nothing would survive without the sun. And good leadership is people, they rely on their leader. They depend on them to help them to carry the responsibilities of the tough decisions that they can't personally make. So instead of having no rulers and no hierarchies, it's the responsibility of the population of people who aren't going to be the natural leaders. They need to demand good and great rulers. And as the French philosopher Joseph de Maistre says, every country has the government it deserves. So the strength of the people is going to demand a strong leader and a moral leader. If the society is moral, it will have a moral leader. The more that society becomes decadent, they're going to receive decadent leaders. So it's such a profound truth to see that what the regular people put up with and what they accept in their families and in the microcosm of the society, they're going to accept embodied as the ruler. So the more moral people are, the more that they embody virtues and seek to do what's good and to make a better world. They're not going to anoint a leader to embody their principles who doesn't also share those virtues. So I just wanted to make this quick video about, you could really talk about the flaws in anarchism, and it's so associated with communism, and how though that philosophy is essentially going to bring about the most ruthless leaders, because it's this denial that there should be good leaders, or centralizing government. You could really go forever about any political philosophies, but I just wanted to talk about this today and how it's so important to recognize that people are always going to assume power in one way or another. It really comes down to what rulers are we allowing to be in positions of power, and to hold those rulers accountable to making the good decisions. So rulership is and to root out corrupt politicians and root out corrupt individuals, you can't accept, or you cannot tolerate that to happen. Because if you tolerate them if you give any toleration to people who will make corrupt decisions in the name of the people, you're just going to repeat that process, and you're going to attract poor rulers. So to get good rulers, you have to have good people, and you have to have moral people. So I'd really love to hear what you think in the comments, any kinds of thoughts that you have. I really appreciate them, and thank you for watching.